2019, when Alexander Albon was signed by the Red Bull team, expectations were high considering his decent performance at Toro Rosso. Albon, who replaced Pierre Gasly and became the second driver after Red Bull's lead man Max Verstappen, was under immense pressure. Although Albon had no podium finishes in his first season, he was still off to a promising start as he won the Rookie of the Year award. However, Alexander's performance during the 2020 season was very meager and disappointing, even though he had 2 podium finishes, one at the Tuscan Grand Prix and another at Bahrain Grand Prix. He finished 7th in the driver's standings with 105 points. Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko is known to be stringent with his young drivers, and after 1.5 seasons, Albon was downgraded to the ranks of a reserve driver. Albon would later remark on the action taken by Red Bull. It hurts, but hopes that he would get his seat back in 2022. Perez, who replaced Albon, has proven his worth many times in the 2021 and 2022 season, but is starting to fall off the pace. The Mexican driver's main problem is finding a way to adjust his driving style to the car's needs. However, Sergio just signed a 2-year deal with Red Bull, keeping him with the energy drink outfit till 2024. Despite his contract extension, Helmut Marko is notorious for his harsh approach and is not shy of breaking ties when he deems it necessary. Albon, who is doing quite well at Williams, still wants to drive for Red Bull again and is hoping to replace Perez in 2024. While a move back to Red Bull is unlikely right now, it is very much possible that Albon might be asked to drive for the Austrian team again. But has Albon improved on his driving since he left Red Bull? How bad is Perez doing at the moment? When are we likely to see Albon back again in Red Bull? And would Albon do a better job than Perez at Red Bull? Let's find out. Alexander Albon started driving in the Formula 1 back in 2019 when he left Formula E team Nissan Dams in late 2018. He was signed into Toro Rosso to start driving alongside Daniil Kvyat, becoming the second driver from Thailand to be in the Formula 1 after Prince Bira in 1954. In his first race during the Australian Grand Prix, he qualified 13th and finished 14th. However, he managed to score points in his second race at the Bahrain Grand Prix, where he finished 9th. Unfortunately for him, his first crash came soon after during qualifying at the Chinese Grand Prix. After he had to start from pit lane, he fought himself back up to a 10th place and got the Driver of the Day reward. Due to his talent and consistency, Red Bull announced his promotion and had him transfer to the big team from the Belgian Grand Prix onwards. At the Belgian Grand Prix, Albon finished 6th after starting from the pit lane. He became 6th in the 2 following races at the Italian and Singapore Grand Prix and scored a 5th place finish in the Russian Grand Prix. Eventually, Albon finished 8th overall in his debut F1 season. But after much praise, his second season saw a lack of consistency and performance. He was part of a couple of crashes and qualified on average over 4/10 away from his teammate Max Verstappen. Although he took his first podium at the Tuscany Grand Prix, the Thai driver took only a single point out of the next 4 Grand Prix. He had another podium finish that season in the Bahrain Grand Prix and was able to finish 7th place in the World Drivers' Championship at the end of the season, 1 place above his previous position in the last season. However, his lack of performance and ability to adjust his driving style to the car got him demoted, while Red Bull decided to try it with Perez. Christian Horner said, "Having taken our time to evaluate all the relevant data and performances, we have decided that Sergio is the right driver to partner Max for 2021 and look forward to welcoming him to Red Bull Racing. Alex remains an important part of our team as test and reserve driver with a key focus on 2022 development, and we would like to thank him for his hard work and contribution." So how did Sergio Perez do at Red Bull so far? Sergio Perez is a Formula 1 veteran driver with more than 220 races under his belt. He made his debut in 2011 for Sauber and has driven for 4 different teams since. He reached an agreement with Red Bull in 2021 after leaving Racing Point. The Mexican driver made his debut for Red Bull in the Bahrain Grand Prix, finishing in 5th place. Unlike his predecessor Albon, Perez was able to qualify ahead of Max Verstappen when he took 2nd place at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, 0.035 seconds behind pole sitter Lewis Hamilton. Perez's first season for Red Bull was praiseworthy as he finished overall 4th in the World Driver Championship with 1 win and 5 points. He was also instrumental to Verstappen's title victory as he held off Lewis Hamilton in the season finale in Abu Dhabi. Although the Mexican did start strong in the 2022 season, he started to fall back in the middle of the season. Perez's performance compared to his teammate has dipped considerably, even though he qualified ahead of Verstappen 3 times out of the first 8 races. Whereas his average pace deficit was less than 1/10 of a second in the first 8 races, it now went up to over 6/10 in the last 4 races. This is way above the no more than 1/10 expectation from Christian Horner. Perez has repeatedly complained that the upgrades brought to the car made him feel more uncomfortable. The RB18 has a more reactive front while having an unstable rear end, which is opposite of Perez's driving style. But has Albon improved in his driving since he left Red Bull? Alex Albon, Perez's predecessor, never out-qualified Verstappen and managed just 2 podium finishes in a shortened season with Red Bull in 2020. Albon's peaks were undoubtedly lower, even though he was driving in a car that was generally regarded as being considerably poorer than both the RB18 from this season and the B-Spec RB16 that Perez received for his debut campaign with the team. In dry qualifying, Albon's average gap to Verstappen during 14 of the 17 F1 events in 2020 was 0.480 seconds. Albon decreased his average gap from 0.5 seconds to 0.4 seconds over the second half of that season. In a dry qualifying session, he was never more than 0.752 seconds behind Verstappen, and the difference was typically less than half a second. Perez's average gap to Verstappen in the RB16B of 2021, which might be thought of as a better direct comparison, was only slightly better, 0.4 seconds across 19 comparable dry qualifying sessions. Since joining Red Bull, Perez has undoubtedly outperformed Albon in some of his peak performances, but he has also had access to demonstrably superior vehicles. In addition, Perez has started 229 F1 races, whereas Albon has only started 53 since returning to the grid with Williams. Therefore, there is a case to be made that, had Red Bull chosen to remain faithful, Albon would have likely developed more quickly than Perez and possibly moved closer to Verstappen. Perez has already mentioned that he doesn't like the direction Red Bull's development of the RB18 is taking the car's balance. To narrow the deficit behind Verstappen by having the car understeer less through the portion of the lap where the majority of that circuit's bends are located, he was asked at Spa if he wanted to add an additional front wing to the car for Sector 2. Perez retorted that he couldn't handle such a setup modification. So would Albon do a better job than Perez back at Red Bull? Albon, on the other hand, was strengthening before his appendicitis setback at Monza as Williams improved the FW44 into a faster car that is also more dynamic and challenging to drive than it was. This is not to say that Albon would perform better in the current RB18 than Perez, but it is not absurd to think that he might. Williams acknowledged that the FW44's aerodynamic platform had become peaky after its significant Silverstone update, and that some of that instability would need to be mitigated by changes to driving technique. However, Albon certainly is open to reunite with Red Bull and Verstappen once more. In an interview with Motorsport, he said, "Red Bull has supported me from the start of my career, so it would be good to keep on with them, but I am kind of apart from the whole family, at least for the Formula One side for next year. So let's have a conversation. Of course, I would like being allowed to continue wearing the Red Bull helmet, but we'll see. Even this year, Williams has occupied a large portion of my attention. I've just concentrated on myself. I haven't participated in any sims or other Red Bull activities. The Red Bull team must be really busy attempting to win championships at the same time. The performances have been worrying, and with the constructor's title on the line, anything can happen." Do you think Albon should replace Perez right now or in 2024 when his contract expires? Is Albon good enough for Red Bull at the moment? Would Albon be able to perform better than Perez? Let me know in the comments section below.